financial portfolio versus spiritual portfolio, and talents was one of that, the pyramid structure, if you look at it, right? How do we use our talents for God? Am I audible okay? Yeah. No? For God. And talents was one of that. We covered the first two, and after that we said we'll pause, and then we did some other things. Last time we did works are better than word. And this time, again, these are all kind of related. We are looking at don't bury what God has given you. So we are looking at talents. ఇప్పుడు మనం చదివిన వాక్యంలో చూసినట్లయితే I'll try and talk a little bit in Telugu also, because some of you have requested, but I'll try my best. చదివిన వాక్యంలో చూసినట్లయితే, this is a parable that we heard probably hundreds of times, right? So this is in Gospel from Matthew. There are many parables on the first three Gospels and a few short ones in John. So we all know about these parables. So parable ante teliyani valki evarna kottaga unte, it's kind of think of it as a parallel story, something that you can relate to. And Jesus has used a lot of parables early on. If you look at the Gospels, the first three Gospels and the fourth one as well, there are a lot of parables which are very relatable to the people over there. So ee parable lo chusinattlaithe, it talks about talent, and what this talent really means in that particular parable is, if you look at the Greek and Hebrew and in the original scriptures, what it means is 20 years worth of labor of someone. That's what a talent actually means. So Jesus is talking about that so that people can relate to it. So when I say people, this particular parable was just for the disciples. It was a closed discussion with the disciples. They were asking like, hey, what's going to happen? When are you going to come back? How does this look like? Then Jesus talks about this parable. So before we dive into this thing, I'm actually using a hymn book that belongs to my dad, that was printed in 1998, long time ago. So, and I was just going through this, and I was reading, and I wanted to sing one song that is relevant to this message. So what I want us to do is, what we will do is, this is a Telugu song. So I want all of us to close our eyes and pay attention not to the beauty of the song, but to the words. This is about how we can focus on the word. So నేను చాలాసార్లు మెసేజెస్లో ముందు ఎప్పుడు చెప్తాను, we have a very short attention span, right? That's why all the social media, the shorter versions are more famous than the longer versions, because we can't focus for more. Someone who can focus for a minute is considered like a superhero. So in that scenario, focusing for 40 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour is like really impossible unless we make an effort to do that. So every time your mind is wandering, I want you to make an effort to bring it back here so that you can focus on the word. Okay? So you know this song, so it's not about the lyrics. So you already know the lyrics, but I want you to close your eyes and just meditate and think through this. Right? నీ వాక్యమును వినిపించు ప్రభువా, నీ దాసుడాలకించున్. నీ వాక్యమును నేర్పించుదాని యందు నడచునట్లు నీతో. భయభీతులలో తుఫానులలో నీ వాక్యము వినిపించుము. ఆదరణ నిమ్ము ఓ గొప్ప దేవా, ధైర్యపరచుము నన్ను, ధైర్యపరచుము నన్ను. So what we are doing here is, ఇక్కడ చిన్నప్పుడు నేను ఈ పాట పాడేటప్పుడు ఏమనుకున్నా అంటే, భయభీతులలో తుఫాన్లలో, మేబీ దిస్ వాజ్ రిటన్ ఫర్ సమ్మన్ హూ వాజ్ ట్రావెలింగ్ ఇన్ ఎ బోట్ ఆర్ ఎ షిప్, రైట్? మనకి భయభీతులు ఏమున్నాయి, మనకి తుఫాన్లు ఏమున్నాయని. సో మై విజ్డమ్ ఓన్లీ వర్క్డ్ టిల్ దెన్. But given that we are at this stage in our life, right, we have so many tufans in our life, so many tornadoes in our life. Bhayabhitulo, every day in, day out, we have so many difficulties. So this applies. That is all noise in our lives. There is so much noise in our lives. In that noise, there is something that can change your life. That is the word. If you understand this song, Bhayabhitulalo, Tufanulalo, whatever is happening in my life, in spite of all of that, right? Let your word pass through all of that and reach my heart. For that, we have to open our hearts, right? So, generally, as I always ask, try to focus, and I'll try to bring you back as much as I can. So let's look at this particular parable, right? So చిన్నప్పుడు నేను బాగా చిన్నప్పుడు ఉన్నప్పుడు మేబీ 3 years 2 years నేను 3.5 years నుంచి బోర్డింగ్ స్కూల్లో ఉన్నాను. బాగా చిన్నప్పుడు ఉన్నప్పుడు ఐ ఆల్వేస్ యూస్ టు క్రై, ఐ వాంట్ ఎ గిటార్. And my parents used to say, like, maybe he's just asking. A lot of kids ask for a lot of things when they are very young, right? We don't pay, at that time guitar probably was expensive, or they thought it's a waste of money. They didn't buy it. And then it got to seventh grade. They said, like, oh, if you get whatever, like this much or whatever percentage, we'll give you something. That never happened. I think I got like district third or something in 7th, but they didn't give it. They said, like, oh, but you didn't get the first. I'm like, okay, fine. 10th, again the same thing. They didn't give it. Engineering, they didn't give it. So finally, when I came to masters here, when I was doing my masters, there was this guy who had a guitar at the back of his car, and I would always see that guitar. The guy was like really good looking, very cool, and I was like so impressed. Wow, this guy is like really interesting. I should follow him, find out, and learn guitar from him. So చాలా రోజుల తర్వాత I was able to find his house. He was also a student. He was my senior. And I went to his house and knocked his house and said, like, I was searching for you for a long time. The guy who has the guitar, is that your car? He said, yeah, that's my car. So I really love guitar. I've always been passionate about it. Will you be able to teach me? He said, like, nah, I don't know guitar. That's just for show, because I get to meet a lot of people because of that guitar. So he didn't know, right? So నాకు చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి I always had this talent in music. It was given absolutely by God, because I never learned music anywhere. I never learned to sing anywhere. But I won so many prizes. Wherever I went, I used to be the first prize, not even second or third. In my 10th grade, I won state first in Andhra. At that time, there was no Telangana and Andhra. But my parents never allowed me to go in that direction. I was in a boarding school. I didn't get to hear a lot of songs. Whatever I heard was from some radio, someone playing from somewhere, because we were not allowed to hear any songs. And in engineering, I ended up playing a lot of instruments. A lot of people had instruments. I would just like, even if I get 5 minutes of my hands on an instrument, I would be very happy. And unfortunately, I haven't invested in that talent much. So even today, I have a lot of instruments, like really cool instruments at home, but unfortunately, I don't have time. Somewhere down the line, I made a conscious choice to invest more into my career, into my studies, into other things, right? Because I felt like I wanted to do a lot of things, but I did not have that much time. So I'm sure you can relate to all of these things, right? We have a lot of talents, but we don't have that much time. So we have to pick and choose those talents. But most of the times we use talents for a different purpose altogether, right? So maybe if I was a musician, when I was in engineering, I used to be in a band. We used to write music. We used to play, and I had a lot of good time and all of that. Yeah, I also used to go to church on Sunday and do that as well. But this particular parable is not talking about using your talents in the world for your own benefit. This particular parable is asking about how can you use your talents for the glory of God. సో చాలాసార్లు మనం ఏమనుకుంటామంటే, నేను కూడా అనుకుంటాను చాలాసార్లు, మనకి ఏమున్నాయి టాలెంట్ అని. సో మనం అనుకుంటాం ఒక్కొక్కసారి ఏంటంటే, యా మేబీ ఇఫ్ ఐ వెంట్ దట్ రౌట్, మేబీ ఐ వుడ్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ సంబడి. బట్ రైట్ నౌ ఇఫ్ సమ్మన్ ఆస్క్ మీ టు ప్లే సంథింగ్, ఐ విల్ బి లైక్, నో ఐ డోంట్ వాంట్ టు ప్లే, ఐ డోంట్ నో మచ్, రైట్? మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద టైమ్స్ వీ హ్యావ్ దట్ ఫియర్. ఎందుకులే, ఎదుటోళ్ళకి ఇంకా ఎక్కువ వచ్చేమో, మనం ఇది వస్తే ఇదేనా అంటారు మళ్ళీ. వై బీ ఇన్ దట్ సిచ్యువేషన్? ఇట్స్ అ వెరీ అన్కంఫర్టబుల్ సిచ్యువేషన్. So we don't really, focus on that. The first thing is you have to know your talents, right? And sometimes we might feel that God did not give us any talents, but that would be a very false statement. So if you haven't found your talent, that means you haven't used your tools properly. We always talk about that great tool that you have, which is prayer, right? We had a sermon on prayer. How can you use that tool to identify your talents, right? you can do that. Because if you don't identify your talents, obviously you can't use your talents for God. I'll give one example. So నేను ఒక చర్చ్లో ఉండేటప్పుడు న్యూ జెర్సీలో every year we used to have like a collection of churches, almost like 50-60 churches come together, like almost like 700-800 people will come together, and we will have a 3-day prayer meeting sessions. For those 3 days we have to plan a lot of things. We have to plan like what's the breakfast, what's lunch, what's dinner, and then the logistics, who's going to stay what, how many hotel rooms do we need, how many kids are there, what do we do for them, what are the activities. If you look at it, it's like really tough, right? Particularly church members ki adi kodiga challenging ga anipinchochu. So I put it in one of the slides. I put the name as David because I didn't want to give the actual name, but irrespective of the name, there was this person who was a project manager who approaches the pastor proactively and says, see, I don't know much, I can't do much, but all the things that you're describing, the chaos that you're describing, it's right up my alley because that's what I do day in, day out at work. Do you want me to put together a project plan? Because I think that will work beautifully. And the other people didn't really understand what is project plan because they didn't know how it actually works together, because we know that it's used at work for projects, but can we use it for this particular scenario? He said, yeah, absolutely, let me do it. And there you go. We had the most organized, most functional, the prayer meeting sessions that we had for 3 days. It was all scheduled. It was in a Microsoft project plan, right? It had the dependencies laid out. It had who is going to do what, and what are the timings, from what time to what time. And all we had to do was follow that plan. So here you have a project manager who is extremely talented at his work, and he used that talent for God's glory, for the benefit of everyone in that particular scenario. So you might think you don't have a talent, but maybe we are all working professionals. We have a lot of talents, right? It's just that we have to find those talents. If we find those talents, we can bring it to the church, we can bring it to your families, you can do a lot of things, right? The first thing is discover. So another scenario నేను చెప్తాను. I don't know if you can relate to it, but I'm sure you can relate as well. నాకు స్టార్టింగ్లో నేను యూఎస్లో ఉన్నప్పుడు I was like very passionate about the gym. So I thought like I should go to the gym, I should have a 6-pack, and I should be like very stylish and everything. I always like to be stylish, but I thought 6-pack would add a cherry on the cake, right? So then I said, okay, I don't know much about gym, so I don't want to break any of my bones or anything, so I'm going to hire a professional. So there is this gym called Equinox in New York City. It's very famous, it's very luxurious gym and stuff. So I went there and I hired a professional trainer. And there you have to pay upfront, right? You have to pay for like 40 hours or something upfront. I said like, okay, fine, we'll pay upfront. Then the first day I go there, it's like an hour session, and I can hardly last like 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, I'm thinking I'm going to die or something, right? So this guy is giving me so many things. I told him like, hey, I'm going to die. This is not possible. He said like, okay, fine, we'll take it slow. And then he takes me to a place where literally there's not even a single guy in that room. There are about like 20 women or girls, like different age groups. All they're doing is they're running from one side to the other side and carrying something and then again put it back over there. So they're just like running from one place to the other. He said like, why don't you join them? I'm like, really, you want me to join them? I'm like, okay, fine. And I ran twice and I was like, I need water, and everyone started laughing. So I said like, oh, maybe I did a mistake. This is not for me. Gym is not for me. I spent too much money going here. Then I had a strategy and I thought, if I go on time, this guy is going to kill me. One of these days I'm going to die in the gym. And I don't want people to laugh at me also. So I started doing a different strategy. I would always go half hour late and he would have another session. And then in that half hour, I would always tell him I need water, I need this, I need to go to the restroom, and I used to like do a lot of things. And then eventually he told me, Sam, you're not cut for gym. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. It doesn't work for you. So it's not for you. I said like, so what can I do? Because I already paid money. What do you want me to do? I mean, I understand it's not for me. I mean, you don't have to tell me. I already got it. Then he said, let's try something. Let's try kickboxing. I said, I don't know what that is. He started teaching me. He was an MMA specialist. He used to do all these fights and everything. So I ended up learning that and I really enjoyed that, right? So how is it relevant to us? I didn't know that I had a talent in martial arts. The guy was like, oh my God, you are natural at this. And when I was doing the gym, I was pathetic. So imagine if I would have invested all of that time until now in the gym, I would have not enjoyed what I was doing. Yeah, maybe I would have got a six pack, yes, but I wouldn't enjoy that. So talents are very natural. You will know, and sometimes other people will validate that talent for you. So watch out for this. So if you are thinking, okay, I want to use my talent for God, but I don't know what talents I have. So the way you will realize you have talent is you will know and someone else will validate that. So the coming week, what I want you to do is, I gave you an exercise sheet. If you see it, there is a 5-page thing. And I gave you some guidance also. What are the different types of talents you might have? That's by no way a complete comprehensive list, but it's a good list that you can start with. What I want you to do is, I want you to identify 5 things from that, and then shortlist 3, and then talk to someone about these 3 talents. You can go to your wife or husband and say like, hey, I'm thinking these are my talents, and see if they validate those, right? If I go to my wife and say like, maybe, some talent, right? I could say like, I'm the best guitarist in the world, so I want to use this for God. So it's like, but I've never seen you play guitar. So there goes, the talent is gone, right? So that's not a talent. So someone needs to validate it. And many times we ignore those validation. A lot of people will tell you like a lot of things. Yeah, Sam, you're really good at this. But then we feel like, oh, maybe they're just saying it, right? But if you have heard something about yourself several times from several people, that's your talent. And now, once you identify your talent, I want you to pick one of those talents and develop that talent, because talent by raw nature doesn't really give you anything, right? As I said, I have a lot of talents in music, but I've never really put much into it, much time into developing those talents. So now you can develop the talent, and then finally you can unleash the talent for the glory of God. So I'm not talking about making money and all of those things outside of the church, right? So maybe making money for the glory of God is also a talent, if that is your talent, if you're really good at, finances, right? So that is also something that you can use for God's glory, right? So far so good? Everyone with me? I hope, right? So let me just go through the slides. We already talked about this. So here we are talking about discovering, developing, and deploying, right? So that's a series. We talked about that. So one thing, generally ఈ టాలెంట్స్ గురించి మాట్లాడినప్పుడు ఒక్క థింగ్ we overlook is, we think talents are our own talents, right? Let's say I'm good at singing. So generally we tend to think I am the singer. How many times do we think God entrusted me with this singing talent? We hardly think that way. But this parable, what it asks us to do is, God has entrusted you with certain talents. Now, pick those talents, develop those talents, just like what we heard in the parable, right? If you have 5 talents, you can make it 10, you can make it 20, the sky is the limit. Jesus never said, make sure you only double your talent, or only use it sparingly because it might disappear. No, there was no limit. We don't know when he's going to come back, but there will be an assessment. We will have an assessment, and we will be asked, hey Sam, I gave you all these talents. You lived for like 70 years or 80 years or whatever number of years. What did you do with your talents? Then maybe I might have an answer, Jesus, I'm like really sorry. I was very busy. I had 2 kids. They were like handful. I couldn't do much because just raising the kids itself was too much. Maybe that's your answer. I don't know. This is for me, right? Or I was very busy at work because I had a target. I had to become something. And I was so focused that I really didn't have time to explore these talents for your glory. But that day will come. And remember, these talents are not yours. You were given these talents for a reason. Now it is up to you. What will you do with those talents? Right? And here, if you see that, I'm in this particular slide here. Just a second. I'm going to go here. And most of the times we don't go through all these slides. This is just for your reference, as I always do. I'm hoping that you will go home and go through this, at least one of you. That would be the outcome that I would expect, right? We are interested, and no one is overlooked. It didn't say like some people, they don't have talents, so if you're that kind of a person, that's okay, don't worry about it. It doesn't say that. No one is overlooked. Everyone is interested. We have different skills. I always tell Chiru brother, you have a unique talent, right? You are very good with people because he has this magnetic charm. He's very good with people, and he could be a great business person, right? He has a lot of talents. I'm just taking one example, right? Each one of you, I know many of you have talents, but we'll not have time to talk about each one of you. But whenever I look at you, I see the talent. I feel like, oh my God, these people are very talented. But how can we use that talent, not for our own benefit, for the kingdom of God? How can we pivot and then bring it to God? Because it's not our talent to begin with. God has given that talent. If God chose not to give that talent, we would never have that talent. Sometimes you see these talent shows, right? American talent show or Indian talent show. Sometimes people come there, they try to perform something, and it's really bad. Like, they come for a singing show, and they have really horrible voice, and then everyone keeps laughing at them. But why did they come there? Because someone told them that you're a good singer. Sometimes we hear that also. Sometimes we hear people saying that, yeah, you're a good singer, you do really well, because people usually don't have the courage to tell us on our face that, you know what, just stop it, right? They don't say that. So sometimes, we have to be careful whom we ask feedback for. Otherwise, you might identify in wrong talents and end up in a show like that. We don't want that to happen, right? Yeah? Okay, so that's important. Always remember, these talents are not ours to begin with. And if you see here in the parable, in the next slide, there is this word that I want to pay attention, all of you to pay attention to. Went at once. After they were interested, they said, okay, let me sit on it. Now I'm hungry. Let me get some food. I'm going to take a week off to prepare and plan and then do something about it. No, they at once, immediately, they started acting on those talents, right? So many times we are waiting for the right time, right opportunity. Yeah, we know we have a talent, but it's not the right time now, because right now I'm very busy in life. Right now I can't give my time for God. Right now there's too many things, too many variables in my life going on. This is not the right time. Let me tell you, tomorrow you may not have time. Maybe we don't have tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow is your time to answer to God. Then what will you answer? God, I was waiting for tomorrow, but you didn't give me tomorrow. Right? Life is so uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If that is the case, if you haven't acted on your talents so far, if you haven't discovered your talents, or you have discovered your talents, but you haven't gotten better at your talents, or you haven't started investing your talents for the glory of God, now is the time. Right? This Sunday, I'm not even asking for tomorrow, this Sunday, immediately. Right? Because what did they do? Went at once. In this parable, Jesus says, they went at once and started investing those talents. And if you see the third one, what did that person do? He went immediately and buried his talent. And most of the times we hear that, when the master came back, when he approaches the third person, he says, like, what did you do? He says, like, I know how worse it could get. I know you could punish me for, not making this, or what if I lose this? We are making assumptions over there that what if I have used it and something bad happens, you're going to put me in a bad situation. So the best thing to do is, I'm going to bury my talent. It will neither grow nor disappear. It will be there. As long as I live, my talent is going to live with me. But it's doing no good to me, doing no good to anyone. If we are in that phase, if we have talents that we have kept them buried, just out of fear, because I don't know, I don't want to invest now. What if I really don't have the talent that someone else has? Usually we tend to do this, right? We are humans. I think I talked about this. The way the human nature works is, As soon as we enter into the room, I talked about this earlier also, unknowingly we tend to assess everyone, and our mind puts everyone at either above us or on par or under, and we don't even know this. It happens automatically, and based on our assessment we start to function, we start to talk to them, or we start to collaborate with them depending on our assessments, right? So if you look at the list that I've given you, I'm sure you will have more than 5 from that list. But the reason I said 5 is, if we haven't done anything until now, and if we start with 20 or 25, then that again becomes the same thing. We have too much and then we don't act on it. I would say just pick one. If you can pick one and focus, master that, and start using that for the glory of God, that's more than enough. Because if you see the first one and the second servant, Jesus said the same thing, right? In the parable, he says like, wow, good job. The second person also, wow, great job, same thing. He didn't say like, the first person was like, you did extremely awesome, you're really good. The second one was like, yeah, you didn't do that much as the first person, but you were okay. That was not the case. We read the scriptures, right? Great job on the first one, great job on the second one. So it's not about competing with other people. These talents were entrusted to you, and you're competing with yourself, with no one else. So there is no first rank, second rank, third rank, nothing. We are all going to be graded based on the talents that we have. And then, as I said, there is no upper cap also. You could go extremely serious about it if you have that many talents, if God has entrusted you with those talents. So how does God know how many talents to give? The scripture says He knows, right? We read the scripture. He knows how much we can handle. He knows how much talent we should be given. Based on that assessment, God has entrusted us with these talents. Now it is on us to use these talents. And I encourage everyone, we hear a lot of messages, right? But being human, being the way we are, being in the busy world that we are in right now, it's very easy to forget things on Sunday and go back into the busy lives. But just take one thing away from this message. I always say one because that's easy to remember, because who's going to remember 10 things from now? It's really tough. Just pick one thing and start using your talents for Jesus, right? And I'm just going to move along a few slides. We already saw this. So can someone read this for me? This is from the slide you have been entrusted. If you can read Romans chapter 12, verse 3 to 8. If you could use a mic, please, so that everyone can hear as well.
విశ్వాస పరిమాణం ప్రకారము తాను స్వస్థబుద్ధి గల వారికై తగిన రీతిగా తను ఎంచుకున్నవాడినని నాకు అనుగ్రహింపబడిన కృపను బట్టి నీలో ఉన్న ప్రతి వానితో చెప్పుచున్నాను.
Thank you, sister. That's good. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. Right? Not all gifts are the same. Sometimes as humans, as I was saying, we tend to compare with someone. Oh, that person has more gifts, this person has fewer gifts. Maybe that person is more talented, I am not that talented. But it's not up to us to decide how many gifts or how many talents we have. Jesus has given us accordingly, knowing us, knowing our capability, knowing our strength. And now it's on us. If you have one talent, that's fine. Make it into 2. Just like the parable, right? It is still 100%. So don't worry about people who have 100 talents. Maybe they have 100 talents and they have done nothing and they just buried those talents. You're still better off. One talent, you double the talent, right? There's no comparison, by the way. And if someone can read this one as well, 1 Peter 4:10.
మంచి నిర్వాహకులై ఉండి ఒక్కొక్కరు కృపవరం పొందిన కొలది ఒకరికొకరు ఉపచారం చేయండి.
Thank you, that's good. If you read in English, right, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another. And your gifts, you can use them to serve one another. The purpose of your gifts is definitely to bring glory to the kingdom of God and to serve one another. And how many times do we think like that? We always think, my gifts, they are for my own benefit. But if we are thinking like that, the word clearly tells us we have to serve one another. Particularly when we are coming together as a congregation. We are a young congregation. There are so many needs unseen, needs unheard. But if you are proactive, if you are able to identify a gap, if there is a talent that you have that you can use here, talk to the pastor, be proactive. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Maybe no one will ever ask because everyone is so busy doing things, right? We are all busy. There is so much potential in you, and that potential we can use in this congregation for the glory of the kingdom of God, right? So don't wait until someone asks you. Don't think that, no one has asked me, so I'm just going to wait. Let someone ask me. And sometimes people say this, ఇంతకు ముందు చేశాను నేను అలాగా, కానీ ఏమైందో నేను చూశాను, సో ఇప్పుడు నేను చేయను. I'm just going to sit and watch. Because people say like, oh, I did that in the past and I got my hands burnt. Now I learnt my lesson. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. But who is losing out? God will somehow help the congregation. God will somehow make sure everything is done. But you are the one who is losing out. God will come back and ask you, hey, what did you do with your talents? Like, oh, I tried once, it didn't work out, so I just like buried it. Are we that person? Right? So don't think about anyone else. Don't think about what other people will think. It's about the talents that you are entrusted with, and how can you bring those talents into the congregation, into the families, into all of our lives, to support one another, to help one another, to love one another, to take care of one another. Can we do that? So I'll ask you this question. We all have our homes here. How many of you have invited others, a family, a new family that has come to the church, or a family that's already here, into your homes? Not just for the sake of food, right? But it's for the company. Maybe you have, you're spiritually at a place where you're able to guide younger families or younger couples. Or you have something that you can offer, your time. That's, as Christians, we're supposed to do that. And if we haven't been doing that, because as I said, we are all busy, and I'm as guilty as anyone else, or probably more guilty than anyone else, because I personally, I did not do that. That's on me, and we keep talking about it, but we never did that. But we have to do it. We are Christians. We have to be different. We have to show our love. The word is very clear on this. If that is your talent, if you are a person who is compassionate, if you are a person who can listen, you don't have to solve anyone's problems. Sometimes in this busy world, there is no one to listen to some people. If you are that person, you have patience, you can listen, that's good enough. Right? And if you are great at cooking, yeah, I'm sure we have so many people who are great at cooking. I'm also good at cooking at few things, but I'm sure I'm absolutely better cooks here, right? If that is your talent, how can you use that talent for the glory of God? Invite people over, have a good time, talk about the good things that are happening in your life because you know Christ. It's not about, oh, I have all these things, the finances or the success, the worldly success that I have because of Jesus. No, it's not that. Can you be happy in spite of having nothing, in spite of all the struggles that we are going through? There's so many struggles. పాటలో చూసాం కదా, చాలా స్ట్రగుల్స్ ఉంటాయి మన జీవితాల్లో. ఆ స్ట్రగుల్స్ ఉన్నప్పటికీ మనలో సంతోషం. ఇందాక అన్న అడుగుతూ ఉన్నారు, హౌ మెనీ ఆఫ్ యూ ఆర్ హ్యాపీ? It's really tough to be happy, right? It's not an easy thing to be happy because there's so many things that we have that we are worried about. In spite of all of those things, we have the potential to be happy if we are grounded in the Word, if we are grounded in Jesus. And if we are that person, then we can share that with everyone else. So this is speaking to where you are right now. That's the slide that I'm on. Right? This is a very important slide, and I want you to meditate on this one when you go home, because we can relate to these things, all the struggles that we are going through. Maybe some of us are going through struggles at work, some of us are going through struggles in relations, or with kids, or with parents. There's so many things that are happening. When so much chaotic our lives are, when our lives are so much chaotic, how can we make time to utilize our talents? Because remember, all of that chaos is going to go away. That's worldly. And Jesus did say that we will have, Jesus never promised your lives will be beautiful, you'll not have any hardships. That's not what life is, right? We are going to have hardships. In spite of that, we have hope. He will always be there to guide us and lead us. Yeah? So again, talents are meant to be invested and not stored. We talked about this. I'm on the next slide, if you will. Using your professional skills, we talked about this. Opening your home, mentoring someone. This is a big one, mentoring someone. There's so many young people here. And with age, we get a lot of wisdom because we have seen certain things that we can teach the younger kids. When I came to US, I didn't know anyone. And when I came to New Jersey to find a job, I didn't know anyone. For 1 week, I slept in the car. I was going from one company to another company, trying to figure out. So there is always someone struggling somewhere. If we care enough to look around. And as Christians, we are supposed to do that. I know we will take care of our own families, our kids, our parents, but beyond that, what can we do? Can we give our time? And serving in the church. There's so many opportunities to serve in the church. Whatever is your talent, because if we don't know your talent, it's on you to bring your talent to us. Right? We've been talking about musicians for a long time. If you have the talent but you haven't made that initiative, or you're thinking like, my talent is not that good. And again, I'll talk about Chiru brother, right? He's not a professional drummer, or he hasn't been playing this for his whole life. He just picked it up. So in that capacity, and again, this is on me as well. I also know a lot of instruments, but I always feel like, yeah, I'm not that good enough. But how will you be good enough? Only when you invest time and wanting to be good enough and wanting to serve the God for His kingdom. That's when you will become good enough. Right? And burying your talent is actually dangerous. It's counterproductive. The person thought it is safe to bury, but it's actually dangerous to bury. Because when the time comes, what will you answer? When the person comes, we have read what happened, right? When the master came and the servant, the lazy servant, what happened to him? He was thrown out. Do we want to be thrown out? Or do we want to be recognized? Do we want to be in that position where Jesus says like, good job, Sam, you did it. I'm proud of you. So that's on us. It's about every individual, right? Per person. And I'm not going to go through each of these things, but we talked about it, right? So there is this fear. There is this fear of comparison. There is this fear of, am I good enough? There is this fear of, oh, I did it in the past, it did not work. Will it work now? If you did it in the past and it did not work, pray. Pray about it. Jesus, I have this talent. I have buried it for so many years. And I haven't used it for your glory. But I want to do it now. Please help me. Where can I start? And the template that I gave you is a good start. Use that along with the prayer. Maybe you'll pick 1 or 2 things and then start there. And I'm going to go to the slide where you see discover, develop, and deploy. And I will not go through the whole thing, but this is your action plan. Think of it as a cycle. It's not linear. You discover, you develop, and you deploy. That's for one talent. And then you go back. Maybe you have more talents. Remember, one person got 5 talents, the other person got 2 talents, the other person got 1 talent. When only you will know how many talents you got. If you got 5, then if you do linear, you will only invest in 1 talent. You got to go back in a circular fashion. That's like continuous process in your life. What are you doing for the glory of the kingdom of God? How are you using your talents? Right? Have that as your action item. And I'm on the last slide. We will close here shortly. Enter into the joy of your master. So I'm here, a lot of references here. And we see when you have invested your talents, when the time is there, when the master comes back, we want to hear, well done. If you're already in that place today, if the master is here today and asks you, and you're in a place where you say like, yeah, thank you God, you have given me these talents, and here you go, this is what I've done with my talents, then that's great job. I'm glad you are in that phase. But if you're not, if you're feeling I'm not qualified, then we have to start that discovery phase, because you are qualified. God has given you talents. It's on you to discover those talents. Let's put some time and effort into discovering those talents. It's never too late. Start today. As they did, when did they start investing? Immediately. As soon as the master left, immediately, not the next day, not the next week. If you're comfortable but you're under-engaged, this happens a lot. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit. Yeah, as in when I get a chance, I do. Sometimes I sing, sometimes I do this. I come to the church, sometimes I bring food. If you think you're under-engaged, only you will know that, right? We can only do a personal assessment. You can definitely talk to your spouse to get some constructive feedback. That will be helpful. If you think you're under-engaged and you can do better, now is the time to do that. Now is the perfect opportunity to do that. So closing, as long as you're breathing, it's not too late, right? You're all breathing here. It's not too late. If you haven't done anything so far, I encourage you all to start doing it immediately. Yeah, let's close with a prayer. Dear loving Father, thank you very much for your word. Thank you for teaching us